Manalangin po tayo. Dakilang Panginoon Diyos, may-ari ng sanlibutan, pinupuri namin ang iyong pangalan. Kami nagpapasalamat sa panalangin at gabay na ibinigay mo sa amin. Salamat sa panibagong araw na ipinagkaloob mo. Salamat din sa pagkakataon na ibinigay mo upang kami ay muling magtipon para sa panibagong kaalaman. Kami po ay humihiling na nawa po ay gabayan mo po kami sa aming pag-aaral at bigyan mo po kami ng makalangit na kaalaman at lakas upang kami ay matuto. At nawa po ang lahat ng aming matutunan ay magamit namin sa pagtulong sa aming kapwa. Patawarin mo po kami sa aming mga kasalanan at nawa po ang lahat ng aming gagawin ay maging alinsunod sa iyong kautusan. Ang lahat ng ito ay aming sinasamo sa ngalan ng aming Panginoong Hesus. Amen. Magandang umaga po sa lahat ng mga criminology students nationwide, sa mga kadete natin from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, sa lahat po ng mga instructors, yung mga professors natin sa criminology, yung mga part-time guest lecturers, pati na yung mga full-time or may yung mga regular professors sa criminology department, at saka yung mga review lecturers natin in various review centers sa buong bansa po. Magandang umaga, good morning po sa inyo and welcome po sa panibagong yugto, panibagong discussion natin. This time, ang subject po is Criminal Law Book 1. Napakarami pong request to discuss about this subject. So ito na po, sa mga kaditing nagre-review right now, ito na po ang comprehensive discussion on Criminal Law Book 1. But before anything else, as a custom mga kadete, give me a very short time again to promote yung Biqueno review materials natin. Isa po itong libro. Kompleto po sa lahat ng subject sa 6 major areas. Naka-arrange na po yan. Plus, may question and answer portion po yan. May Q&A po on the second part. So, bali, book 1 will be review materials synthesized po sa lahat ng subjects. Yung book 2 po is a question and answer. So, andyan po, if you want to hone your analytical skills, makapag-practice po kayo in taking or in preparing sa sarili nyo in a board examination, you can actually grab a copy of this one. Moral lang po ito. Secondly, I'd like to reiterate, I'd like to dwell again on the distribution of questions sa mga subjects sa criminal law and jurisprudence. Ang CLJ, isa po yung major area that you have to take on the first day of the criminologist licensure examination. Una po na area yan na i-take nyo sa CLE. Morning po, first day, CLJ yan. Now again, I'd like to reiterate mga kadete ha, especially yung nagre-review. Ito po ang distribution of questions in as far as board examination is concerned. Now, ang makikita nyo sa slide, these are basically the subjects. Ang CJS, o yung Criminal Justice System, 5 po ang tanong na lalabas dyan. Human Rights Education, 5 again. Criminal Law Book 1, this subject, may 20 questions na kukunin po. Criminal Law Book 2, yan po ang may pinakamaraming tanong na lalabas, 35 questions po out of 100. Evidence, 17. Saka yung pinakalast po na subject is Criminal Procedure and Court Testimony. I am reiterating this mga kadete para at least that will give you the idea kung ano po ba ang subject na dapat po may marami kayong oras sa pagre-review. Pero hindi ibig sabihin na Human Rights Education and CGS, 5 lang po yung lalabas. Hindi ibig sabihin dyan, hindi kayo magre-review sa subjects na mga yan kasi 5 lang. Ang point ko po, recalibrate your focus. And as much as possible, recalibrate your time in the review. In the review. Para at least po, nalaman po natin, criminal law book to, yan po ang may pinakamaraming tanong na lalabas. Ibig sabihin, bigyan po natin ng maraming oras sa pagre-review ang criminal law book to compared to other subjects na mas lesser po yung questions. So, yun po. Now, without further ado, punta tayo sa basic ha. Balik tayo sa basic. I believe sa lahat po ng nagre-review right now, memorize nyo na po kung ano ang definition ng criminal law. But just to make a quick review on the definition. Ibig sabihin po ng criminal law, branch or division of law which, una po, defines crime. Pangalawa, treats of their nature. Yung pagtrato po sa katangian ng krimen. Pangatlo, pagbigay po ng punishment. Okay, tatlo po yan ha. Yung pag-define ng krimen, pagtrato sa katangian ng krimen, tapos binigyan ng punishment. Basically, ang criminal law po natin consists of 2 books. Just to have a short review about this. Book 1, Articles 1 to 20, Principles Affecting Criminal Liability po yan. Articles 21 to 113, Provisions on Penalties. Book 1 po. Sa Book 2 naman, which consists of 14 different titles. 14 different titles. Articles 114 to Article 365. Book 2 po. Again, consisting of 14 different titles. As to the time when the criminal law took effect, nag-took effect po ito, January 1, 1932. Actually, this came out in the previous board examination. So, kindly take a look at this, cadets, ha? Kindly memorize po. Now, ito po, mga kadete, I think this is already a common knowledge to all of you. Yung 3 theories of criminal law. Una, classical. Pangalawa, positivist. Pangatlo, mixed theory. So, pag classical, balikan natin ang introduction to criminology ng konti. Pag classical, una, free will ang dapat nating tandaan. Ano bang free will? Yung capacity ng isang tao to choose between right and wrong. So, free will. Ibig sabihin, nag-commit ka ng crime kasi ginusto mo. Free will po. Pangalawa, ang classical theory will focus on the crime, not on the criminal. When I say focusing on the crime, that means it lays stress on the result of the felonious act and not on the nature of the criminal or not on the nature of the person who committed it. Pangatlo, pag classical theory, ang purpose po ng punishment is retribution. Ano ba ang retribution? Revenge or vengeance. Dapat bigyan ka ng punishment kasi you deserve it. Yun po, it's a matter of retribution. Now, take note mga kadete na ang revised penal code po natin, yung criminal law po natin, is generally governed by the classical theory. So, yun po. Now, at the opposite side naman, itong positivist theory, which is very different in terms of principles. Now, ang classical school theory, ang sabi ko kanina, will concentrate on the crime. Pero ang positivist theory, it will concentrate on the criminal. So basically, ang positivist theory will look on social and economic conditions that will push a person to commit the crime. Ibig sabihin, basically, it emphasizes on the internal and external factors why the person committed a crime. Kung balikan po natin ang introduction to criminology under positivist theory, bakit po ba mag-commit ng krimen ang tao? Mag-commit po siya ng krimen kasi po may mga factors po, surrounding factors or internal factors that will push him to commit the crime. And sometimes these factors are uncontrollable. Let us say, for example, bakit po ba ang tao pumatay ng other guy o pumatay ng another person? Bakit pumatay? Kasi po, una is probably jealousy. And jealousy is an internal factor that cannot be controlled. Why does individuals sell drugs? Bakit po nagbibenta ng droga? Kasi po may economic factor, pobre kasi and there is no other means of livelihood. So yung poverty is an economic factor that pushes him to commit the crime. So in the positivist theory, it's not about the crime, but rather yung nature po ng criminal. Ano yung mga factor na nag-push sa kanya to commit the criminal act. Pangalawa, pag ang classical theory, ang purpose ng punishment is retribution. Ang positivist theory, ang purpose po ng punishment is basically rehabilitation. Ano ibig sabihin ng rehabilitation? To change the person from a law violator into a law-abiding citizen of the country. Yan po, rehabilitation. From a person who has no means of livelihood to an individual who will become productive in the society. Yan po ang rehabilitation. From being an ignorant guy, dapat po paglabas niya sa penal institution, dapat po yung pagka-ignorante niya, nagiging educated na siya kasi he underwent alternative learning system. So yun po, rehabilitation po ang purpose ng punishment ng positivist theory. So you can see the difference between classical school and the positivist school. Classical theory and the positivist theory. Classical theory, which lays stress on free will. Number 2, laying stress on the crime. And number 3, laying stress on punishment as a way of retribution. Yung positivist, lays stress on the internal and external factors, social and economic conditions that will push a person to commit crime. And number 2, yung purpose ng punishment is more on rehabilitation. Ang combination po sa dalawa is what we call as mixed theory. Okay? So yan po ang theories of criminal law. I hope you understand na mga kadete. I'm trying my best po to make you understand the discussion as much as possible po. Maintindihan po natin ang mga theories para at least pa board examination, hindi po tayo ma-confuse. Now, thirdly, itong construction of penal laws. Okay? Again, preliminary topics pa po tayo ha. Construction of penal laws. Una po, ang penal law po natin, revised penal code o yung criminal law po natin is construed in favor of the offender. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng construed? Word na construed. Ibig sabihin dyan, interpreted. Ibig sabihin, our criminal law, our revised penal code is interpreted in favor of the offender. Pero, kailangan po that the offender must clearly fall within the terms of the law. Kasi po, later on, we will review again na hindi lahat ng offender will be favored by the revised penal code. For example, yung mga habitual delinquent, sometimes po, you will not benefited with the retroactivity of the law pag habitual delinquent ka po. So, it is construed in favor of the offender generally. Number 2, an act is criminal only when made so by the statute. So, may mga may mga argument. Ano po ba ang nauna? Yung batas o yung krimen? So, dapat po, basic logic po, mga criminology students, mga criminology cadets, basic logic, nauna po yung batas. Kasi nolum criminum lapuina sine lege. Yun po ang Latin word. Ibig sabihin po dyan, pag walang batas, walang krimen. There is no crime if there is no law. So basically, ang nauna po is yung batas. Okay? So hindi po pwedeng matawag na crime or criminal ang isang act when there is no statute or there is no law punishing it. Number 2, in cases of conflict with official translation, take note, original Spanish text is controlling. Pag may conflict po sa translation, ang original Spanish text is controlling. Lumabas po ito sa previous exam. And number 3, no interpretation by analogy. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng analogy? Yung pag-compare po natin sa dalawang bagay po based on resemblance or based on particular aspect. So, there should be no interpretation by analogy kasi po yung kaso, every case is considered to be unique. On the other hand, marami pa din po ang nagdidebate sa sources of Philippine criminal law. Marami pa din, especially yung mga review materials na nag-contain ng mga questions regarding about this. To make a short review, mga kadete, 3 po ang main sources natin. Una yung RPC, Revised Penal Code, or yung Act number 3815 po natin, including the amendments of the RPC. Kasali po yan as sources of the Philippine criminal law. Pangalawa, special penal laws. Special penal laws. Ano bang pinagkaiba sa special laws at saka sa special penal laws? Unahin natin ha, special law. Sana maintindihan po ito mga kadete ha. Pag special law, tinatawag po siyang special in a sense that the provisions of that law can only be applicable to a specific group or specific class of people. Special law po ang tawag. For example, Republic Act 11131. Sino po ba ang covered? Di ba ang covered mga criminologist? Republic Act 8551. Special law po yan. Sino po ba ang covered? Di ba ang covered is Philippine National Police lang? So, ibig sabihin, pag Republic Act 8551, it cannot be applied to teachers. It cannot be applied to firemen. Kasi po, ang covered sa 8551 is only Philippine National Police. Ang klase or ang grupo po involved or ang provisions po can only be applied to a specific group and that group is Philippine National Police. Kaya tinatawag siyang special. Okay? Special law. Now, on the other hand mga kadete, pag special penal law, bakit may word na penal? Kasi po, ang batas na ito, number one, it only applies to a specific class of people. Number two, it defines crime and it gives punishment on that crime. Yan po ang pinagkaiba. For example, if we talk about Republic Act 9165, yung Republic Act 9165 is basically a special penal law kasi ano po ba ang grupo targeted in this law? Di ba yung mga drug users, drug pushers, yan po ang targeted dyan. So basically, may crimes defined under Republic Act 9165. So, aside from the definition of the crime, it also provide punishment on such crime. So, tinatawag siyang special penal laws. On the other hand, let's say for example, Republic Act 10591, yung batas po natin sa firearms. Di po ba? Sa firearms may definition din po doon. Definition din po about crimes that can be committed by any individual. At the same time, it provides punishment also. So basically, ang tawag po sa kanya is special penal laws. Pero ang special law, it is just a law that mandates or gives provisions, and these provisions are only applicable to specific group of persons. Pero ang special penal laws, number one, it is applied to a specific group. At the same time, it created or it defines crime and provides punishment. Ang special penal law po is a special law. Kuha po, I hope this is not confusing. Ang special penal law is a special law. Pero ang special law can never be a special penal law. Nakuha nyo po? I hope that is not confusing mga kadete ha. Kasi po, ang special penal law is basically a subtype of a special law. Okay? So yan po. I hope you understand. Pero pag may tanong po kayo, just post or just comment in the comment section para at least po I can discuss it further. Pangatlo, penal presidential decrees issued during martial law. Source din po yan. Now, note, court decisions are not sources of the criminal law. Ano ba yung court decisions? This is referring to jurisprudence. Yung na-decisionan po ng korte, hindi po yan sources of the criminal law. And number two, yung common law. Crimes are not recognized in the Philippines. Ano ba yung common law? Common law. This refers to the body of principles, usages, and rules of action which do not rest for their authority upon any express and positive declaration of the will of the legislator. Basically, these are laws that are considered to be unwritten, mainly based on legal precedents established by the courts, but this is not recognized in the Philippines kasi nga po, sa Pilipinas po, ang pag-create ng batas is nasa legislative body. And if it is not recognized by the legislature, basically it should not be recognized as part of the laws of the Philippines. Dito nagdidebate yung mga criminology students. Pati na yung mga, I'm sorry to say this, pati na yung mga review lecturers ha. Ito po ang board exam question. Which of the following is not a source of the criminal law? Makikita nyo po ang choices: special laws, special penal laws, revised penal code, presidential decrees. Balikan po natin ang definition ng criminal law. Para masagot. Tingnan po natin ang definition ng criminal law. Criminal law is a branch, Criminal law is a branch or a division of law, una, which defines crime. Pangalawa, yung pagtrato sa katangian ng krimen, traits of its nature. At pangalawa, provides punishment. Basically, yan po ang definition ng criminal law. Tingnan po natin sa mga choices. So, ang answer is basically a special law. Bakit po? Kasi, ang special law does not define a crime. Republic Act 8551 does not define a crime, although it has provisions that regulates the operations or the structure of the Philippine National Police, but it does not define crime and it does not provide punishment. So basically, answer po is letter A, special laws. Ibahin po natin ang choices, mga kadete. Ibahin po natin ang choices. This time, same question, pero ang choices iba. Special laws, letter A. Letter B, Philippine Constitution. Letter C, Revised Penal Code. Letter D, Presidential Decrees. It's a very tricky question. Now, ano po ba ang answer? Which of the following is not a source of the criminal law? Ang answer po natin is letter B, Philippine Constitution. Balik again tayo sa definition ng criminal law. Based on the definition of the criminal law, ang Philippine Constitution does not provide punishment. It only explains crime, rights, in various provisions thereof, but it does not provide punishment. Sir, ang tanong, bakit kanina you mentioned special law as not a source? In fact, sa previous question, special law yung answer as not a source of the Philippine criminal law. Remember, in the board examination, iselect po natin yung best answer po. Between the two, Philippine Constitution is the best answer. Kasi po, pag letter A, remember, as I have stated a while ago also, ang special penal law is a subtype of a special law. Nakuha niyo po? A special penal law is a subtype of a special law. Basically, it means ng special penal law is also a special law. So, between the choices of special law and Philippine Constitution, ang tamang sagot po is Philippine Constitution. Pero pag nakalagay dyan, special law, letter A, letter B, Philippine Constitution, letter C, jurisprudence, letter D, presidential decrees. Between the three, special laws, Philippine Constitution, tsaka yung jurisprudence, nako, ang i-answer po natin is jurisprudence. So, I hope nakuha nyo po mga kadete Again, ang bottom line po dito mga kadete, I really want you to understand this. Ang bottom line po kasi dito in taking the board examination, yung pinaka-best answer po ang iselect po natin. Okay? I hope clarified po ito. Pero, granting na ang choices po is only number 1, nakalagay Act number 3815, nako, okay na yan, given na yan eh. Pangalawa, special penal laws. Pangatlo is presidential decrees. Lahat po ng, yung pang-apat po, which is different from the 3, yun po ang answer. Pag yung 3 are given, automatic po ang pang-apat that are not part of the 3 is considered to be the best answer. So I'm just giving you the idea mga kadete na sa board examination, it would not be that easy. So magbibigay po sila ng mga tricky questions po. I hope I made myself very clear. Nod, ex post facto law and bill of attainder, napaka-basic po ito mga kadete Pang ex post facto law, isang batas having a retroactive effect. So, kailan po magkaroon ng retroactive effect? Una po, makes an act criminal even committed before the passage of the law. Ibig sabihin, yung act po executed by that person was considered as a criminal or as a crime even if it was committed before the enactment of a certain law. For example, anti-voyeurism law, di ba? Let us just say, for example, it was enacted, approved, It took effect on 2009. Ano bang provision? Isa sa mga provision dyan, you are not allowed to record the sexual activity, the sexual activity between you and the other person, without, of course, his voluntariness. So, ito po ang issue that came out on the spike of the Katrina Halili case. Di po ba? There was a sexual scandal, and then what happened was the lady celebrity filed a case against Hayden Co. But the prosecution dismissed the case on the ground that the complaint does not violate a particular law because during that time, hindi pa po na-enact yung anti-voyeurism. So, let us just say, nangyari yung activity, 2005. Example lang po ito, 2005. Yung batas po was enacted and approved 2009. Even if the lady celebrity will file a case, it will not be entertained considering that again, yung batas po has no retroactive effect. So, bawal po ang ex post facto law based on Article 3 of the Philippine Constitution. So, ang na-perform po ngayon na act which is not considered as a crime cannot be considered as a crime in the future if there is a law passed regulating about it. Sunod, it aggravates a crime compared to when it was committed, changes the punishment, and inflicts a greater punishment. For example, yung convicted person, ang punishment niya sa krimen is only 5 years. Pero may bagong batas about it, pinapataasan, nagiging 8 years. So, question ngayon, ano po ba ang years of sentence na dapat na i-served by the convicted person? 5 or 8? Considering na may bagong batas. So, ang i-serve niya po is yung original na 5 kasi nga po walang retroactive effect. Di pwedeng ibahin po, ipataasan yung punishment by the person. Kasi nga po, ang batas po natin walang retroactive effect yan. Lastly, alters the legal rules of evidence and receives less testimony from what the law originally required as to the time the offense was committed in order to convict the offender. Ibig sabihin po, during the commission of the offense, may standard po yan in terms of testimony. But if there is a law that will require a lesser testimony in order to make the person be convicted of the crime, it shall not be allowed kasi po it's basically an ex post facto law. And it is not allowed under the law. So yun po ang ex post facto law. Yun po ang mga basihan na magiging retroactive effect yung isang batas. And the ex post facto law is not considered to be constitutional. On the other hand, Bill of Attainder, a legislative act which inflicts punishment without a judicial trial. Napakaisip pong intindihin yan. Now, note, if the punishment is less than death, the act shall be called as Bill of Pains and Penalties. So, yun po, mga kadete. Isa po sa pinaka-importante na topic sa episode na ito is itong characteristics of the criminal law. Una, generality. Pangalawa, territoriality. Pangatlo, prospectivity. Pag generality, ibig sabihin, kahit pobre ka man or mayaman, if you are ugly, whether you are ugly or whether you are handsome, illegitimate or legitimate, educated or not educated, lahat po will have to follow the law. The provisions of the criminal law apply to you. Pero, may mga exceptions po tayo sa generality. For example, yung treaty stipulation, laws of preferential application, o yung mga principles of public international law. Specifically, ito po ang mga exempted, yung sovereigns and other chief of state. Pag presidente ka or prime minister ka, exempted po. So yung presidente ng Amerika will visit our country, exempted po siya sa criminal law, sa implementation ng criminal law. Pangalawa, yung ambassadors, ministers, plenipotentiary, ministers resident, and charge differ. But consuls, vice consuls, and other foreign commercial representatives cannot claim the privileges and the immunities accorded to ambassadors and ministers. Klaro po yan ha. Yung consuls and vice consuls are not benefited thereof. Only po yung ambassadors, ministers, plenipotentiary. Ang ibig sabihin po ng charge d'affaires, ito po ay isang official which is placed in charge of diplomatic business when there is an absence po sa ambassador or minister. Pag wala po ang ambassador, wala po ang minister, then pwede po ang kapalit temporarily is the charge d'affaires. So I think that's the correct pronunciation. So yun po ang mga exempted. But generally speaking, under these characteristics, lahat po those people sojourning or living in the Philippines has to follow the provisions of the criminal law. Pangalawang characteristic again is territoriality. Ibig sabihin, yung penal laws po natin have force and effect within the national territory of the Philippines. Sa territorial limits lang po natin pwedeng may apply yung penal laws po natin. Pero just like generality, mga kadete, may exceptions po tayo. Ibig sabihin, kahit nasa outside the territorial limits, our laws can still be applied. Exceptions po ang sinasabi ko ha. Pero generally speaking, ibig sabihin ng territoriality, our laws in the Philippines can only be applied within the territorial limits of the country. Exceptions, ito po, number 1, Philippine vessel or airship, panghimpapawid at saka yung pandagat. Una po nating tandaan, ang batas po sa Pilipinas will apply to offenses committed in vessels registered in the Philippine Bureau of Customs. Ano ang sabi? Yung pandagat po, yung sasakyang pandagat, pag naka-registered po yan sa Philippine Bureau of Customs, pag may krimen po na nakomit, even if that vessel is outside the Philippine territory, still, yung batas natin will apply. I hope klaro. Now, pangalawang emphasis, it is the registration, not the citizenship of the owner which matters. I repeat, registration po ang basihan, hindi po yung citizenship ng owner. Klaro po yan ha? So, registration. Ang registration po na naka-registered po sa Philippine Bureau of Customs. Now, ito, ang board exam question na lumabas. Ito ha, ito ang situation. After drinking 1 case of San Miguel beer and taking 2 plates of pulutan, si Binoy, a Filipino seaman, stabbed to death si Xiaomi. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. Si Xiaomi, a Singaporean seaman aboard MV Princess of the Pacific, an overseas vessel which was sailing in the South China Sea. The vessel, although Panamanian registered, is owned by Lucio C., a rich Filipino businessman. Question, where is the trial of the case? Sino ang may jurisdiction over the crime? So dito po sa situation, we will try to digest this. Yung sa situation po natin, si Binoy po, si Binoy committed a crime. He stabbed to death yung Singaporean seaman. Si Binoy is a Filipino who is the suspect. Yung biktima is a Singaporean. Yung krimen nangyari sa China Sea. Sa China mismo. And then, yung owner is a Filipino businessman. Pero, yung vessel is registered in Panama. Kuha nyo po, napaka-complicated po na tanong. Ang suspect is a Pinoy or a Filipino. Ang biktima is a Singaporean. Nangyari sa South China Sea. South China Sea. Yung may-ari is a Filipino. Pero yung vessel is actually registered in Panama. Tanong ngayon, sino ang may jurisdiction over the case? Una, Philippines. Philippines ba? Kasi yung suspect is a Filipino at saka yung owner na vessel is also a Filipino. Pangalawa, Singapore ba? Kasi yung biktima is a Singaporean. Or China ba? Kasi nangyari sa South China Sea. Or letter D, Panama. Balikan natin uli ang exception number 1. Basahin po natin ha. Philippine vessel or airship, Philippine law shall apply to offenses committed in vessels registered within the Philippine Bureau of Customs. Ang tanong ngayon, is the vessel registered in the Philippine Bureau of Customs? Yan po ang tanong. I-rationalize po natin. Is the vessel registered in the Philippine Bureau of Customs? Ang sagot po is no. Saan po nakaregistered ang vessel? Nakaregister po siya sa Panama. So, who will have the trial of the case? Who has the trial of the case? Who has the jurisdiction thereof? So, basing on the exception, it should be Panama. The answer is letter D. Okay? So, yan po ha. Again, yung first exception po ha, Philippine vessel po or Philippine airship po yan. Pero ito, pangalawang exception, hindi na Philippine vessel or hindi na Philippine airship, but rather a foreign vessel na. Ibig sabihin, yung vessel from other countries. May two categories po tayong dapat tandaan mga kadete. Una, yung foreign vessel is a merchant vessel, yung pangangalakal. For example, yung oil tanker from other countries. Pag merchant, foreign vessel po, dalawang rules. Una, French rule. Pangalawa, yung English rule. Ang ginagamit po natin sa Pilipinas, yung na-apply po natin dito, is yung English rule. Pero i-define po natin ang dalawa. Pag French rule po, ibig sabihin dyan, yung krimen po committed on board is not triable in that country unless yung crime affects the peace and security or the safety of the state has already been endangered. Sa English rule, which is opposite, pag nangyari po ang krimen on board, it is triable. Sa French rule, hindi triable. Pero sa English rule, it is triable in this country unless yung issue po only involves internal management. So, pag internal management, for example, nag-aaway yung chief engineer at saka yung captain over an issue, it cannot be tried in the Philippines kasi it's basically internal management. But if it is a serious crime committed on board, it is triable in our country because we are following the English rule. So to simplify mga kadete, kunwari po ang isang Chinese merchant vessel will enter our Philippine territory tapos nag-commit ng krimen on board. Such crime is triable in our country considering that the crime was committed within our territory. Kasi foreign merchant vessel. Now, ang sabi po dito sa US versus Lok Chow, mere possession of opium on board a foreign vessel in transit in the Philippine waters as such does not involve a breach of public order unless the opium is landed in our Philippine soil. Ibig sabihin po, dito sa kaso po na ito, dito po sa jurisprudence na ito, isa pong foreign merchant vessel in transit, may opium po. Yung position po sa opium does not affect our public order. So there's no need for it to be tried in our country. Unless, pwede siyang matry, pwede siyang makasuhan sa Philippine courts pag ang opium po is landed within our Philippine soil. Ibig sabihin, nag-dock yung vessel, tapos yung opium po is transported within our Philippine soil. Automatically po, that will be tried in our country. Pero pag mere possession lang while in transit po, mere possession ng opium, it is not covered under our exception of the territorial characteristics. Pangalawang jurisprudence po, US versus Wong Cheng. This already involves breach of public order because the accused smoked opium while inside the vessel. Yung una, yung US versus Lok Chow, ang nangyari, mere possession lang. Pero, sa US Wong Cheng, may position siya, tapos what he does is to smoke the opium. Even though he is on transit and on board the foreign merchant vessel, considering na yung smoke po already causes pernicious effects within our country, automatic triable po sa Pilipinas. Pero mere position lang, sabi po dito, okay lang while on transit as long as it does not reach the Philippine soil. Pero, pag kinuha yung position ng opium, nag-smoke siya, sinindihan, yung pagsindi po, pag-smoke po ng opium is already a basis for the case to be triable in our country. Kasi nga po, yung smoke niya again, produces pernicious effects within our country. I hope that is very clear mga kadite. Now, yun po ang unang kategorya. Yung pangalawang kategory, foreign vessel pa din, pero this time, yung foreign vessel is a warship. Warship po ha. So pag warship po, ito po ang policy po natin. If the foreign vessel is a warship, our courts have no jurisdiction as such is an extension of the country to which it belongs and is not subject to the laws of another state. That's very clear mga kadite. That's very understandable. So kahit po US warship, for example, US warship ha, foreign vessel yan, but it's a warship, will enter our Philippine territory. Tapos nagpatayan sila doon on board. On board ha, nagpatayan sila doon. Question, can it be tried in our country? The answer is no. Bakit po? Kasi warship nga yan. If it is a warship, ang jurisdiction po sa pag-try ng case is yung country where it belongs. Pag US Naval or pag US Navy ship yan or US Navy vessel po yan, again, ang US or yung America will have jurisdiction over the trial of the case because the warship belongs to America. The country of registry determines the nationality of the vessel, not its ownership. Klaro po ha, kung saan po nakaregister yung vessel na warship. Yun po ang may jurisdiction over the case. A Filipino-owned vessel registered in China must fly the Chinese flag. Ibig sabihin, kahit Filipino ka, ikaw yung may-ari, pero nakaregister dyan sa China, dapat you have to fly the Chinese flag. Okay? So yan po ha, foreign vessel po yan. Yung una again, let's have a short recap. Foreign merchant vessel po, yung French rule, at saka yung sa English rule. We follow the English rule. Pangalawa, foreign vessel pero this time warship. Ang sabi ng warship, kung saan nakaregister, sino ang saang country siya nanggaling, yun po ang country who will try the case, who will have jurisdiction over the case. So sa board examination, pag nagsabi, Peter shot John while on board the US Navy vessel, so basically, saan po ba ang trial ng case? Doon sa Amerika. Kasi po, registered siya sa Amerika. Ang term po that refers to the application of the RPC outside the Philippine territory, ang term po is extraterritorial. Huwag kalimutan yan ha, mga kadete. Extraterritorial po ang term. Now, pag-usapan naman natin ang aerial jurisdiction, yung sa himpapawid naman, airship. Tatlong theories po ang involved. Number 1, free zone. Pangalawa, relative. Pangatlo, absolute theory. Ang ina-apply po sa Pilipinas is itong tinatawag na absolute theory. Sa free zone, wala pong jurisdiction ang isang country over the aircraft, over the crime happened on board the aircraft unless yung krimen po involves national security and public order. So pag may nangyari pong krimen sa himpapawid, under the free zone theory, that country where the atmosphere belongs has no jurisdiction unless, again, the crime imperils the national security and public order. Pangalawa, relative theory, mayroong jurisdiction ang country but only to the extent that it can effectively exercise control thereof. But then again, we do not follow the relative or the free zone theory, but we follow the third one, absolute theory. So, ibig sabihin ng absolute theory, mga kadete, sa Pilipinas, ito ang ina-apply po natin, ang mga krimen po na nangyayari sa himpapawid, considering that the atmosphere belongs to the territorial limits of the Philippine country is triable in our country, and our penal laws in the Philippines will apply. Okay? So, yun po ang pagkakaiba sa tatlong teorya, yung absolute theory po ang ina-apply po natin. Second, ito ha, second major exception po. Now, by the way, balikan po natin ha, para at least mas klaro po ha. Yung unang exception is about Philippine vessel and airship. Okay, Philippine vessel and airship. Then, part thereof would be the foreign merchant vessel and the foreign warship vessel. Okay? Ngayon, another major exception under territoriality is ito. Should forge or counterfeit any coin or currency note of the Philippine island or obligations and securities issued by the government of the Philippine Islands. The forgery is committed abroad and it refers to the Philippine coin, currency note, obligation, and security. So ano bang ibig sabihin nito? Simple lang. Pag ang isang Pinoy pumunta ng Amerika tapos nag-counterfeit siya ng money, yung Philippine currency natin, yung Philippine peso, whether it is a bill or a coin, automatic our laws will extend or will apply abroad in America pag money na po ang pinag-usapan. Banknotes, for example, check doon sa abroad, nag-counterfeit, Does our law applies? The answer is yes. Kasi nga po, ang nakalagay dyan, coin or currency note of the Philippine Islands or obligations and securities by the government of the Philippine Islands. So, ang pag-forge po or pag-counterfeit, even if the counterfeiting is done in the other country, still our laws will apply. Kasi po, exemption po yan ng territoriality. Pangatlo, third major exception, should be liable for acts connected with the introduction into these islands of the obligations and securities mentioned in the preceding number. So, yung pong na-counterfeit na money from abroad, counterfeiting our Philippine currency, lahat po ng tao, yung mga tao po who will be bringing or who will be introducing such currency in our Philippine soil, such people or such individuals should be liable for counterfeiting. Ito ang fourth major exception sa territoriality. While being public officers or employees, tapos nag-commit ng offense in the exercise of their functions outside the country. So again po, those having to do with the discharge of their duties in a foreign country, the functions contemplated are those which are to be performed by the public officer in the foreign service of the Philippine government in a foreign country. So ito po is another exception under territoriality. So pag ang isang tao is a public officer or a public employee, tapos he committed a crime in relation to the performance of his duties, nako, he can be liable, or our laws will apply to him even if the crime is committed outside the Philippine soil. Another thing that we have to remember, mga kadete, is that yung RPC po natin will still govern, will still apply pag ang krimen po, whether it is related or not related to the performance of the duty of the public officer outside the country, the RPC will still apply, mga kadete, so long as the crime has been committed within the Philippine Embassy. Bakit po? Kasi ang Philippine Embassy, huwag kalimutan, is an extension of our sovereignty. Ibig sabihin, ang krimen po na nangyari within the Philippine Embassy is deemed to have been committed within the Philippine soil. Now, para mas maintindihan, mga kadete, I have an illustration coming from the board examination. O ito po, Philippine Consulate Official, consul po yung tao. He has been married here in the Philippines, tapos he was assigned, for example, he was assigned in the United States of America. Pagdating niya sa Amerika, he fall in love with another woman. To make the illustration short, he got married again for the second time. Ang question ngayon, can he be liable for bigamy? Ano ba yung bigamy? Yung nagpakasal ka 2 beses, 2 yung asawa mo. Can he be liable for bigamy? Yun pa ang tanong. Ang sagot po, hindi. Bakit po? Marrying somebody abroad is not part of the public responsibility or it is not part of the public function of being a consul. So, di po siya pwedeng matry dito sa Pilipinas. Pangalawang situation, under this illustration, pangalawang situation, Philippine consul assigned in America. Pagdating niya sa Amerika, fall in love with another woman, and then he wanted to marry that woman. To make the illustration short, he got married, and the marriage was celebrated within the Philippine Embassy. Ang tanong ngayon, can he be liable for bigamy? Ang sagot, yes. Bakit po ba yes? Again, because the Philippine Embassy is an extension of our sovereignty. Ibig sabihin, yung krimen that has been committed in the Philippine Embassy is deemed to be committed in the Philippine soil. So yung unang situation, consul nagpakasal sa US, kasado siya sa Pilipinas, he cannot be liable for bigamy so long as the marriage is not celebrated within the Philippine Embassy. Pangalawang situation, he got married and the ceremony was celebrated in the Philippine Embassy. Can he be liable for bigamy? The answer is yes. Where is the trial of the case? The trial of the case should be in the Philippines, considering that yung embassy is an extension of our sovereignty. So I hope you understand, mga kadete. Pero pag nagpakasal siya ulit doon sa Amerika, so long as yung marriage is not celebrated within the Philippine Embassy, nako, he will not be liable for bigamy. here in the Philippines. Kasi nga po, marriage, the second marriage is not part of his official function. Pero pag part yan ng official function, ang krimen related sa official function niya, ang ginawa niya is a crime related to this, and he is outside the country, he will be triable. Pero ang marriage is not again related to his function. So yun po. Now, another situation, board exam question po ito mga kadete ha. I hope these board exam questions will help you a lot. Now, ito ang situational, allow me to read. Si Jose married to Felisa. Contracted another marriage with Maria in Singapore. So si Jose married to Felisa, he fall in love with Maria, and he married Maria in Singapore. Thereafter, Jose and Maria returned to the Philippines and lived as husband and wife in the hometown of Jose in Calamba, Laguna. Can Jose be prosecuted for bigamy? O ito si Jose is not a public official. He is just an ordinary citizen of the Philippines. He got married in the Philippines. Pagpunta niya ng Singapore, he married another woman, si Maria. Tapos umuwi sila as husband and wife. They lived as husband and wife in the place of Jose in Calamba, Laguna. Question is, can Jose be liable or prosecuted with bigamy? Ang sagot po nito, hindi. Bakit po? Again, the crime was committed in Singapore. And bigamy is not part of the exceptions of territoriality. It's not part of the exception. So basically, si Jose po is not liable for bigamy. Pero, considering that Jose and Maria is living as husband and wife here in the Philippines already, pwede po ang kaso is concubinage. Okay? Concubinage po, hindi po bigamy. Concubinage na in a sense that they are living as husband and wife, knowing that in the first place, Jose was married with Felisa. So in this case, they cannot be liable for bigamy kasi po, yung batas po natin will not extend to Singapore. But considering that they are living as husband and wife in the Philippines, ang krimen po na pwedeng i-apply sa kanila is concubinage. So yun po ang board exam question po. And it's basically, I hope it will help you be enlightened with the exception of territoriality. The next exception, the fifth major exception is, should commit any of the crimes against national security and the law of nations defined in Title 1 of Book 2 of this code. Remember, rebellion is not included in this one. Any crime against public order is under the jurisdiction of the host country. Like, say for example, treason. Treason is basically a crime against national security and law of nation. Tapos, if somebody committed treason, like say a person will go to the other country and that country is an enemy country, basically our laws will apply to him even if he went to the other country. So to summarize mga kadete, ito po ang mga exceptions po sa territoriality. Number 1, should commit an offense while on Philippine ship or airship. Letter B, should forge or counterfeit any coin or currency of the Philippines, blah, blah, blah. Letter C, should be liable for acts connected with the introduction into the country of the obligation and securities aforestated. Letter D, while being public officers or employees, should commit an offense in the exercise of their functions. And letter E, should commit any of the crimes against national security and the law of nations such as treason, espionage, and piracy. So yun po ang mga exceptions po sa territoriality. I hope understandable po yung discussion po natin sa generality and territoriality po. Now, without further ado mga cadets, without so much delay, puntahan po natin yung third characteristics, itong prospectivity na po tayo Prospectivity. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng prospectivity? Diba? Kanina, I mentioned about ex post facto law. The law must not have any retroactive effect. In the same manner, pareho lang po. Sa prospectivity means the law, acts, or omissions will only be subject to a penal law if they are committed after a penal law had already taken effect. Ibig sabihin, if the act is not considered as a crime Pag ang act po is not considered as a crime, in the future po, it shall not be classified as one if there is a law regulating it. For example another example po ito, pag si Juan does not wear helmet year 2000, tapos na-enact yung mandatory helmet law 2009, hindi po pwedeng filean ng case si Juan over the act he committed in the year 2000. Kasi during those time, yung hindi niya pag-wear ng helmet is not yet considered as a crime. So dapat po, ano po ba ang mauna? Batas or yung krimen? Ang mauna po is dapat may batas for a particular act to be considered as a crime. Vice versa, this act or omission which has been committed before the effectivity of a penal law could not be penalized by such penal law. Exception. May exception po tayo. Same with territoriality and generality. Ano ang exceptions? When the new statute, it is favorable to the accused. And number 2, the accused is not habitual delinquent. Ito po ang sinabi ko po kanina under ex post facto law. Sa ex post facto law, ang batas po should not have retroactive effect. Pero may exception. Ang exception po, hindi siyang magka-retroactive effect if retroactive effect will favor the accused. And number 2, the accused is not a habitual delinquent. For example po, nung una, you can see in the revised penal code, vagrancy. Yung vagrancy po, yung taong palaboy-laboy lang with no means of livelihood. Sa revised penal code po, nung una, it is considered as a crime. Let us say for example lang, si Pedro has been imprisoned because of vagrancy. Now, considering that vagrancy has already been decriminalized, hindi na po siya krimen. Naging decriminalized na po yan. Wala na pong vagrancy ngayon sa Pilipinas. By the way, yung mga review materials natin pag may vagrancy pa yan as a crime, naku, itapon nyo na yan sa basurahan. Wala na po tayong vagrancy Di na po yan krimen, decriminalized na po yan. Balik po tayo sa situation. Si Pedro has been imprisoned of vagrancy. Pagdating ng panahon, ang vagrancy was decriminalized. Ano mangyari kay Pedro? Si Pedro will be released from jail. He will be released from the penal institution. Bakit po siya ma-release kahit hindi pa natapos yung sentensya? Ma-release siya in a sense that yung effect po sa bagong batas is beneficial to him. So, in that case, yung bagong batas has retroactive effect on Pedro as long as it is beneficial to him. Pero pag si Pedro po is a habitual delinquent, there will be no retroactive effect that could benefit him. So ito po prospectivity, generally speaking, wala pong retroactive effect ang batas. Pero may exception. May retroactive lang yan pag it benefits or it is favorable to the accused. At the same time, yung accused po is not a habitual delinquent. Okay? Now, para mas maintindihan, ito po ang effects of repeal on the penal law. May mga pangyayari po na ang revised penal code, some of its provisions are amended or becomes obsolete. Example po dyan is yung tinatawag na vagrancy, yung sinabi ko po kanina. Now, if the repeal makes the penalty lighter in the new law shall be applied except if the offender is a habitual delinquent. Ito po, sinabi ko din po ito sa ex post facto law. Pwede pong may retroactive effect if number 1, for example example lang po ito. Let us just say, ang punishment ng illegal possession of firearms is 5 years. Example lang po ito I'm not very sure if 5 years ba talaga. But just an example. Let us say 5 years. Tapos dumating ang panahon that Pedro committed a crime on illegal possession of firearms, 5 years yung punishment niya. Dumating yung panahon that there was a law that repealed such law. Instead of 5 years, nagiging 3 years po yung punishment. 3 years na lang. Meaning na-decrease. Yung old law, 5 years. Yung bagong batas is only 3 years. Now, in that case, may retroactive effect po on the accused considering that it could benefit him. So, pag nakapag-serve na siya ng 3 years, automatic, dapat i-release na po siya. Kahit yung original sentence niya is 5 years. Kasi, bakit po i-release? Kasi yung new law is only 3 years. Pero, wala pong retroactive effect, again, as I have stated, pag yung accused is a habitual delinquent. Ibig sabihin po, yung illegal possession of firearms niya, original sentence is 5 years, dumating yung bagong batas na 3 years, dapat makapag-benefit sana sa accused, pero yung accused is nakitaan na siya isang habitual delinquent. In that case, walang retroactive effect. Okay? Pangalawa, if the new law imposes a heavier penalty, the new law shall not be applied on a previous penalty. So again, example lang po ha, illegal possession of firearms, let's say 5 years. Dumating ang panahon, may bagong batas. Ang bagong batas is dapat 7 years na ang punishment. Question, will it contain a retroactive effect on the accused? The answer is no. Why? Because number one, it is not beneficial. It is not beneficial, meaning it does not favor the accused. Remember that our penal laws is construed in favor of the accused. So in that case, it shall not apply. So he will remain on the number of years of sentence, which is 5 years. Kahit yung bagong batas is 7 years na. Pangatlo, if the new law totally repeals the existing law, where the previous act was penalized but is no longer punishable in the new law, crime is obliterated and the accused should be acquitted. Ito po ang sabi ko kanina. Sa Revised Penal Code, may vagrancy po tayo. Diba? So, pagdating ng panahon po, I think to 2012, I'm not pretty sure about this, on the specific year that the vagrancy was decriminalized. Ibig sabihin, pag ang tao is nailagay sa prisuhan because of vagrancy, dumating yung bagong batas na decriminalize na ang vagrancy, automatic yung accused should be acquitted and should be released. Kasi po decriminalized na yan hindi na po yan krimen. So yan po ang effects of repeal on penal law. So I hope naintindihan mga kadete ha. I hope klaro po. Now, punta po tayo sa definition ng crime. So, ano ang nauna, batas or ang krimen? Batas. Kasi po, pag walang batas, walang krimen. Ano ba ang krimen? Crime is basically refers to acts and omissions punishable by the existing law. Dapat yung batas is not considered as obsolete, but rather existing po siya. Acts or omission. Now, remember, may tatlo po tayong classification. Introduction to criminology po tayo. Una, felony. Pangalawa, offense. Pangatlo, misdemeanor. Nako, pabalik-balik na po ito mga kadete. I discussed this in so many instances in various subjects. Pag felony, it is an act or an omission that is a transgression of the Revised Penal Code. Pag ang na-violate or ang na-transgress is special laws, ang tawag po offense. On the other hand, pag ang na-violate is city or municipal ordinance, ang tawag po is misdemeanor or infraction. Ang tao po na nag-commit ng felony, ang tawag po sa kanya is felon. Okay? Felon ha, kadete ha, felon. Ang tao po na nag-commit ng offense, ang tawag po sa kanya is offender. Ang tao na nag-commit ng infraction or misdemeanor, ang tawag po sa kanya misdemeanant. Okay? Felon, offender, misdemeanant. Kindly jot it down, kadete. Yan po ang classification. Now, ang felonies are committed not only by the means of deceit, but also by means of fault. So ganito po, para mas daling ma-memorize natin, yung hermeneutics po nito is dido. Parang namatay na, dido na. In Cebuano, pag ibig sabihin dido, ibig sabihin patay na po yan. So pag dido, deceit, dolo. Deceit, dolo, dido. Dido. Pag fako naman, ibig sabihin fault, culpa. Fako, fault, culpa, dido, deceit, dolo. There is deceit when the act is performed with intention, deliberate intent. And there is fault pag imprudence po yan, negligence or lack of foresight or lack of skill. So, in Cebuano, dinangag, reckless, being careless is what we call as fault or culpa. Pero pag with intention, ang tawag po niyan is deceit or dolo. On the other hand, we'll say actus reus, physical act, mens rea, a guilty mind, a guilty or wrongful purpose or criminal intent. Simply, guilty mind po means 3. So, nulum crimen, nulum pinasinelehe. I mentioned this a while ago. There is no crime if there is no law punishing it. Okay? Pero pag nakalagay sa board examination, there is no crime if there is no law and we can only abolish crime by abolishing the law, ito po ang principle na tinatawag pong logomacy. Okay? Logo. From the word logo. Logomacy, ibig sabihin, there is no crime if there is no law and we can only abolish crime by abolishing the law. Now, sa pagpapatuloy po, ito ang pinagkaiba ng act at saka yung omission. Diba? Ang krimen is considered as an act or omission that violates any existing law. So, ano ba ang act? Ang act, overt or external act. Ibig sabihin ng overt, makikita. Dapat external movement po yan. So, yun po ang definition natin ng act. So, pag gusto mo patayin ang professor mo kasi napaka-boring ng discussion, o diba, napaka-instricto ng teacher mo or yun ng instructor mo and you want to murder him o you murdered him million of times in your mind, di ba? Nangyayari yan pag galit ka sa teacher kasi napaka-stricto, di ba? Minumurder mo, you stab him several times in your brain only. Di ba? Sa mind mo, pinapatay mo na yung professor. Nako, that is not considered as an act. Kasi ang act is basically, it needs to be performed externally. So, if you plan to kill somebody by means of shooting, and that plan has already been, and that plan is just crafted within your mind, it is not considered as an act. So, therefore, it should not be considered as a crime. Okay? Pangalawa, omission. Omission, on the other hand, is the failure to perform a duty required by the law. It is important that there is a law requiring the performance of an act. If there is no positive duty, there is no liability. So, dapat po, una natin tandaan, dapat may batas po na nag-require to perform such act. And then, yung tao po, he is required to perform such act but he fails to perform such responsibility. Ang tawag po, omission. Example, there is a dying person. May dying person po. Tapos, yung dying person na yan is Pedro, whom you hated most. May galit ka kay Pedro, may grudge ka sa kanya. One day, nakita mo si Pedro in prone position on the ground, on the verge of death. And he is asking for your help. Kasi sa galit mo, you have a grudge. Yung hatred mo pushes you to, to reject or to neglect the plea or the begging of the dying person. In the law, failure to render assistance, krimen po yan kasi omission yan eh. Pangalawa, sa mga stores dyan, responsibility po natin ang pag-issue ng receipt. Pero nakalimutan siguro natin yung mag-issue ng receipt. Nako, that's an omission. And if it basically violates the law. So yan po ang pinagkaiba ng act at saka yung omission. Another example of omission, yung hindi ka nagbayad ng buwis. 'Di ba? Ang pagbayad ng buwis is basically our a responsibility to be performed. So if you do not pay taxes, that's tax evasion. So it's an omission. Another example, last, hindi ka nag-file ng SALN. 'Di ba? Or yung sa SALN mo is not transparent. 'Di ba sa batas po dapat naka-declare po yung mga assets po natin, liabilities and networking, pero hindi mo na-declare lahat. So basically, it's an omission. Yan po ang pinagkaiba sa dalawa po. Next, classification of felonies according to the means by which they are committed. Ito po, another very important discussion in this episode. Number 1 again, yung dedo, yung deceit, dolo. Intentional felonies by means of deceit or dolo. Requisites po dito, dapat may freedom ka, may kalayaan ka, normal na tao ka, may intelligence ka. Pangatlo, may intent. Okay? Ibig sabihin ng intent, ginawa mo, ginusto mo po. But there are instances that criminal liability is affected by the following factors. Number 1, itong tinatawag nating mistake of fact or ignorancia facti excusat. Ano ba ang mistake of fact? It's basically misapprehension of fact on the part of the person who caused injury to another. Ang effect po nito is that the person who committed the crime is not criminally liable. Bakit hindi po siya criminally liable? Kasi po, number one, the act done would have been lawful had the facts been as the accused believed them to be. Letter B, intention is lawful. Letter C, mistake must be without fault or carelessness by the accused. So, ang pinaka-best example po nito sa mistake of fact is itong People versus Achong. Isa po itong pinakasikat na kaso on the mistake of fact. Actually, ang principle po nito has been accepted by our Supreme Court. So, ano bang nangyari dito? Ang nangyari po, a houseboy who stabs his roommate in the dark, honestly mistaking the latter to be a robber responsible for a series of break-ins in the area, and after crying out sufficient warnings and believing himself to be under attack, cannot be held criminally liable for homicide. Ang nangyari po kasi nito mga kadete ganito po ang nangyari. Ito si Achong was actually a cook. May roommate po siya. Tapos yung area po nila was infested with robbery. And some series of break-ins in the area. Tapos one night po, it was very dark. While Achong was inside, tapos yung roommate niya is wala, there was somebody who wanted to forcefully enter inside the room. So gusto ng tao outside, he wanted to break in forcefully sa room ni Achong. Pero yung roommate niya was absent when that happened. So, ang ginawa ni Achong was to ask that person. Sabi niya, sino po ba ang nasa labas? Sino po ba ang nasa labas? But unfortunately, there was no answer. Sabi niya uli, if you will get inside, patayin kita. Pag you will force to get inside, papatayin po kita. Papatayin po. So, yun po ang nangyari. So, to make the story short, that person entered the room. It was very dark. Ang ginawa ni Achong, he got the knife, he stabbed the person, and that person died. And it so happened that eventually that person was actually his roommate. So dito po, may tinatawag tayong mistake of fact. So sa situation po na ito mga kadete, there was clearly a misapprehension of the facts. Misapprehension kasi na-misinterpret po ni Achong yung situation. He was thinking that the person who wanted to go inside was a robber, magnanakaw. He was actually thinking na ang papasok po is someone who could be committing robbery. And not to mention that he issued a lot of warning to the person. Only thing that yung tao po did not respond to the question or to the inquiry. So, in this case po again, si Achong was acquitted. Second classification again is culpable felonies by means of fault or culpa. FACO. Fault or culpa. Requisites po nito, freedom, intelligence, and number 3, the last one is the lack of foresight or negligence, and the lack of skill or imprudence. Okay? So again, krimen po yan For example, let us say for example you want to harvest the sugar cane. You want to harvest the sugar cane po. And then it so happen na yung wind direction is towards a particular house. Dito sa Negros Oriental, pag mag-harvest po ng sugar cane, ang ginagawa po is sinusunog para makuha yung something like a part of the sugar cane that could be very itchy. So, ang ginawa, sinusunog to remove it. So, let us say, sinusunog mo yung sugar cane plantation mo, knowing that the wind direction is towards the house. At the end of the day, yung house na yan is nasunog, you might not be liable for arson, but you might be liable for reckless imprudence. It's basically fault. You have negligence or the lack of foresight. So again, that is still considered as punishable under the law. Reckless imprudence resulting to homicide. Pag mga usually applied to traffic accidents, mga ganito. Okay? Liable po yung tao. Next, Let's go to criminal liability. Part 1 po, paragraph 1, criminal liability for felony committed different from the intended to be committed. Ito requisite sa felony has been committed intentionally. Injury or damage done to the other party is direct, natural, and logical consequence of the felony. Again, yung una po ha, criminal liability for a felony committed pero different siya from that intended to be committed. Para mas maintindihan po, ito po ang classification niya. Una po, error in personae. Pangalawa, aberratio ictus. Pangatlo, praetor intentionem. Isa-isahin po natin itong mga kadete ha, para mas maintindihan po. Pag error in personae, ibig sabihin dyan, mistake in identity. Mistake in identity. I have examples that I will explain later on. Pag aberratio ictus naman, meaning mistake in blow. Pag praetor intentionem naman, lack of intent to commit so grave a wrong. Ibig sabihin, greater than what is intended yung offense na na-commit mo. Gusto mo is bugbugin lang, pero pag bugbog mo na sa isang tao, namatay, it caused death. That's praetor intentionem. But I have examples later on that you will understand more. Para mas maintindihan mga kadete, ito situation ito from the previous board examination. Si A, thinking that the person walking in a dark alley was B, fired at that person who was killed as a result. It turned out that the person was C, the father of A. What crime is committed? So ang nangyari dito, si A, pinaputukan niya yung tao. Akala niya that it was B. Pagpunta niya sa location where the person was lying on the ground, dead, he observed na hindi pala si B, but rather yung napatay niya is yung ama niya. What a coincidence. Di ba? Ang tanong ngayon, what crime is committed? Letter A, homicide. B, murder. Letter C, parricide. Letter D, serious physical injury. Now, in this case, the crime that is actually committed is parricide. Kasi ang napatay po is yung ama niya. He was thinking that it was he, but in reality, it was actually his father. So, in this case, the crime actually committed is parricide. But, let us say for example, that A wanted to kill his father. Example na po ito, let us revise the situation a little. Let us say, he wanted to kill his father, tapos he waited for the latter in the dark alley, tapos pagpas po, when A saw a person coming, he was thinking that it was his father, so he shot him. And it turned out that it was actually B. So ano po ba ang kaso if that would be the situation? In that case, hindi na parricide, but rather homicide na. Nakuha po? Nagiging homicide na. Again, let us to clarify the situation. Ang una situation ito, si A, he was thinking that it was B, so he shot his gun. But unfortunately, it was his father. Ano po ba ang kaso? It's basically parricide. On the other hand, pag si A has a grudge against his father, he waited for his father to pass in the dark alley, then there was somebody who was walking, he shot that person thinking that it was his father, pero unfortunately, it was B. Si B yung namatay, hindi yung ama niya. In that case, magiging homicide, hindi na parricide. Okay? So, sa situation po na ito, sa makikita nyo sa slide, ang answer po dyan is letter C, parricide. Okay? Now, on the other hand, ito po ang example ng aberratio ictus. Ano ba yung aberratio ictus? Mistake in blow. So, ito situation, si B and C were walking. Tapos, ang gusto ni A, patayin si B. So, what he did was to take off his gun, aim the muzzle of the firearm towards person B. And he pulled the trigger. Pag-pull ng trigger, siguro itong si person A, hindi siguro nakapag-enroll sa criminology. Walang marksmanship. So instead, ang natamaan sa act of firing, ang natamaan was C. Ang gusto niyang matamaan is si B. He was pointing the gun to B. Pero hindi nakapag-enroll ng criminology. Ang nangyari, ang natamaan si C. So, it was a mistake in blow. So, ang nangyari po sa situation, may offender, may intended victim. Sino ba yung intended victim? Ang intended victim po dito is si B. Pero yung actual victim dito is si person C. So, ang tawag po dyan, aberratio ictus. In Cebuano po nito, itong culpa or fault or negligence, dinangag, hindi maingat, padalos-dalos lang. So, aberratio ictus means mistake in blow. So, iba po ang aberratio ictus, iba po ang error in persone, Pangatlo, itong tinatawag nating praetor intentionem. Ano ba yung praetor intentionem, mga kadete? Ibig sabihin ng praetor intentionem, lack of intent to commit so grave a wrong. Ibig sabihin, yung effect po, yung krimen naging greater than what is intended. Ito po ang example para mas maintindihan po, cadets. Si A and B quarreled and they had fist blows. A started to run away and B went after him. And struck him with a fist blow at the back of the head. Because the victim was running, he lost balance, he fell on the pavement, and his head struck the cement pavement. He suffered cerebral hemorrhage, then died. Although B claimed that he had no intention of killing A, his claim is useless. Intent to kill is only relevant when the victim did not die. Although B was convicted for homicide for the death of A, B was given the benefit of mitigating circumstance. Ito po ang pinagkaiba sa tatlo. Kasi sa praetor intentionem, ang intention mo is just to commit a lighter offense. Pero ang nangyari, ang consequence nito is nagiging greater offense po ang nangyari. Ang gusto ni B was just to punch A. But on the act of punching, si person A lost his balance to the point that losing the balance thereof causes the death of person A. So in this case, there was praetor intentionem. So there was no intention in killing. Yes, there was no intention. But then again, yung act mo was the cause why the person died. You want to hit him with the fist only, pero ang nangyari, he was out of balance and he died on the process. So in this case, praetor intentionem po. Ang praetor intentionem po, although you are punishable with homicide in this scenario, pero may mitigating circumstance po. When you say mitigating circumstance, may reduction po yung number of years of sentence considering the praetor intentionem. Difference between proximate cause and immediate cause. Basahin po natin, kadetiyak, proximate cause, the cause which in the natural and continuous sequence unbroken by an efficient intervening cause produces the injury without which the result would not have been occurred or would not have occurred. When we say immediate cause, it's the actual cause, a case or factor without which the event could not have occurred. Note that the proximate cause is dependent on the actual cause. So basically, when we say proximate cause po, ito po ang dahilan. Dahilan po ng pagka-suffer ng injury by the victim. So, ang proximate cause po is unbroken by any intervening cause. There is a possibility na may mga factors that will intervene. But in this case, wala pong factors. Absent po ang factors na mga yan, even though there is a possibility. But these factors are considered to be absent. And then, it causes injury. On the immediate cause, when you say actual cause, there is no opportunity for the intervention of another factors. There is no possibility that the intervening factors might occur from the point the crime is committed up to the point that the injury was suffered. Para mas maintindihan ang pagkakaiba, ito po ang senaryo sa board examination. Ito si Vicente hacked Anacleto with a bolo, but the latter was able to parry it with his hand, causing upon him a 2-inch wound on his right palm. Now, si Vicente was not able to hack Anacleto further because 3 policemen arrived and threatened to shoot Vicente if he did not drop his bolo. So Vicente was accordingly charged by the police at the prosecutor's office for attempted homicide. 25 days later, while the preliminary investigation was in progress, yung biktima po, si Anacleto, was rushed to the hospital because of symptoms of tetanus infection. Then what happened was, to make the explanation short, si Anacleto po died on the following day. Now, ang tanong ngayon, can Vicente be eventually charged with homicide for the death of Anacleto? Remember that in this scenario, the hacking only caused 2-inch wound on the right palm of the victim. Meaning in the first place, when the hacking was done by the bolo, when the hacking was done, the victim did not die. He was just suffering from a 2-inch wound on his right palm. Even though the police officers filed a case of attempted homicide, pero ang nangyari, while the process was in progress, while the preliminary investigation was in progress, itong biktima na si Anacleto was rushed in the hospital because of tetanus infection caused by the wound inflicted by Vicente. Eventually, the victim died. Ang tanong ngayon, what was the cause of the death of the person? The cause was because of the tetanus of the wound, the tetanus infection. So yung tetanus infection which caused the death of the victim was a proximate cause, was considered to be a proximate cause why the victim died. Okay? Why the victim died. So ano po ang ikaso dito? Yung consummated homicide or yung attempted homicide. In that case, maiba na po ang kaso, magiging consummated na po na homicide considering that the victim died. Proximate cause. Pero nangyari ang death after 25 days po. After 25 days. Okay? Now, on the other hand, tingnan natin kung ano ang immediate cause. Ito po ang scenario. The conduct of wife A aroused the ire of her husband B. Incensed with anger, almost beyond his control, B could not help but inflict physical injuries on person A. Moments after B started hitting his wife with his fist, si A suddenly complained of severe chest pains. B, realizing that A was indeed in serious trouble, immediately brought her to the hospital. Despite efforts to alleviate A's pains, she died of a heart attack. It turned out that she had been suffering from a lingering heart ailment. What crime, if any, could be held guilty for? So in this case, si B was angered by the conduct of his wife na si A. So ang nangyari, binubog niya po, and yung wife niya was complaining, di ba? There are instances, mga asawa po, lalaki, binugbog, mga husband, binugbog yung wife. Ito, similar situation po. Binugbog niya si wife. Pag bugbog niya po, si wife was complaining na masakit yung dibdib niya po. Not knowing, si B did not actually know that his wife was actually suffering from heart ailment. To make the story short, because of the fist, because of the punches of the husband, yung wife niya is namatay. Ang pagkamatay niya po is an immediate cause. Okay? Ang pag-hit, ang felonious act of hitting his wife was considered as an immediate cause on the death of person A, yung wife. So, kung tutuusin po, kung intindihin po natin ng maayos, yung immediate cause po did not allow any probability for an intervening factor to come in. Kasi po, short po yung time from the act which was perpetuated to the injury being suffered by the victim. Pero ang sa proximate cause, nangyari ang krimen, it take a longer period for the effect to happen, for the person to die. Remember, in the first scenario, it took 25 days pa lang. Pero again, let me clarify mga kadete. On the first situation, pag ang biktima po is namatay, not because of the wound, but rather on, let us say, he died because of accident. Because of accident. Nako, in that case, the perpetrator should not be held for homicide. Kasi iba yung cause ng pagkamatay niya. Pero in that situation, hindi. Ang cause ng pagkamatay niya was on the tetanus. So, it took a longer time. Proximate cause niya was the hacking. Yung effect niya was the death of the victim. Again, the person, the perpetrator is still liable for homicide. In the second scenario, again, if you will take a look at it, mas quicker po yung result. Ibig sabihin, when the perpetrator punched his wife, the wife suffered a chest pain. And the chest pain was actually a symptom of heart ailment that causes the death of the victim. In this case, immediate cause po ang pagbugbog niya sa wife niya on the death of the victim. Okay? So, yun po ang pinagkaiba. I hope I made myself very clear. Next, lastly mga cadets, we will talk about impossible crime. Ito impossible crime. Bakit tinatawag siyang imposible na krimen? Tingnan po natin ang definition. Act which would be an offense against persons or property were it not for the inherent impossibility of its accomplishment on the account of the employment of inadequate or ineffectual means. Meaning, yung means na ginamit is not effective. Okay? Requisites of impossible crime. Act would have been an offense against persons or property. Number 2, there was a criminal intent. Number 3, accomplishment is inherently impossible. Imposible po ang accomplishment, ang act. Or inadequate or ineffectual means are employed. Number 4, act is not an actual violation of another provision of the code or of special law. For short, impossible crimes occurs when, number 1, inherent impossibility to commit the crime, inadequate means to consummate the crime, and ineffectual means to consummate a crime. Now, ang tanong po ito, is an impossible crime really a crime? Ang sagot is no. An impossible crime is not really a crime. Pero binigyan lang ng label, para mas klaro. Impossible crime, but it is not a crime. It is only so-called because the act gives rise to criminal liability. May liability kasi yan. But actually, no felony is committed. The accused is to be punished for his criminal tendency or propensity, although no crime was committed. Ito po ang situation sa board examination. Last na po ito mga kadete. Ang question po ganito, because of bitter rivalry, ABC decided to get rid of XY. Ang gusto niya po is sa pamamaraan ng pag-poison kay XY. So si ABC poured a substance into XY's coffee, thinking that it was arsenic. Actually, nilagay ko po ito sa rationalization sa Biquino Online sa FB. It turned out that the substance was actually a white sugar. Nothing happened to XY after he drank the coffee. What criminal liability did ABC incur, if any? So, ang gusto ni ABC, patayin niya si XY by means of poisoning him. So, he put the substance thinking that it was poison. But unfortunately, without his knowledge, it was actually a plain sugar. Pure negligence. Siguro si ABC, no? Napaka-ignorante siguro. May malaki namang disparity between poison and sugar. Pero ang nailagay niya was sugar, thinking that it was poison. Pag drink ni XY, instead of being poison, he was singing hallelujah because it was very sweet. Diba? Yung coffee niya. For short, XY did not die in that situation. Ang tanong ngayon, may criminal liability ba? Kung may crime, ano po ba ang krimen? Una, murder. Pangalawa, attempted murder. Letter C, frustrated murder. Or letter D, impossible crime. In this case, probably, pag nakarinig tayo ng word na poison, treachery agad, hindi po ba? Murder agad. But in this case, knowing that the means is ineffectual. Ano ba yung means na ginamit niya? Sugar. Is sugar effective to poison somebody? Naku, hindi. Hindi po pwede. Hindi siya effective. So, ineffectual means po ang ginamit, since ineffectual means ang ginamit, it's very impossible for the crime to happen. So in that case, ang answer po natin is impossible crime. Okay? Bakit po dapat i-punish yung tao kahit walang krimen na commit? Because of his criminal tendency. Okay? So yan po ang sagot. Okay? Impossible crime. Alright? Now, mga kadete, I'd like to stop in this slide. So I hope everyone will still be with me in episode 2. Maraming salamat again. Laking tulong po ang pag-view nyo sa mga videos natin. Again, thank you so much. Please share our videos. God bless everyone. Maraming salamat po.